Hi friends, I'm excited to share a new layout with you today for the Shimmerz Paints design team. I am using the October Color Kitz, and I am super excited about these October Color Kitz because the colors are absolutely fantastic. They are super happy Halloween pattern papers and colors, and I love Halloween. So I was super excited to get this kit and get to play with all of these different things. So I am scrapbooking 3 photos from Halloween of 22, and I picked just some of my favorite pictures from the night. My whole family comes to our house for Halloween, my parents and my brother and his kids, and we all go together, come together and have dinner and then go trick-or-treating together. So it's a super fun time, and I just picked some sweet photos from that night and backed those with patterned paper from the Color Kitz. So I picked that purple pattern paper with the little black bats on it, the orange paper that just has black polka dots, and then this super cute green textured or green checkered patterned paper. And I ripped the edges of each side of that. You can see I'm just kind of tearing off the edges, and then I'm going to use my Tim Holtz edge distressor to kind of rough up those edges, and that gives me lots of great texture behind my photos. So it definitely helps my photos stand out in the middle of a layout that's going to have lots of color and layers and textures behind it. So that's super fun. And here I'm just distressing those edges a little bit more to give it some good texture. And then the photos, I did take some craft foam. This is just some cheap craft foam from my craft store, and I add my own adhesive. I did attach the 3 photos on a piece of just white scratch paper to make sure that the photos were exactly where I wanted them. So they are attached together, and then I add them to the craft foam and put that kind of right in the middle of that green checkered, I don't know why I keep saying that, green checkered paper. And then now that I know the size of my photos and kind of the photo mat area, I get started on the background. So I am using the fantastic colors from the October Color Kitz. Each of them are super bright and vibrant shades of the color that they are, and I love that. So this first one that I'm using is a super bright purple that is called Vivacious Violet Colorings. And the colorings are just a flat color. So I am using my ink daubing tool to add that purple to the background. Then I do the Dandelion Creamies. The Creamies come dry, and you add just a touch of water to those to kind of activate that color, and then it gives you a super satiny finish. And then the orange is a Jack-o'-lantern Vibes. So that is going to be a super bright orange that does have a little bit of shimmer. The Vibes have a little bit of shimmer, and that comes in a bottle. It's a spray. And then the last one is the Celery Shimmerz, and the Shimmerz is the shiniest or most glittery and sparkly of the mediums that I'm using on this layout. So those 4 different colors, 4 different types of mixtures from Shimmerz Paints, and all equally brilliant. So I added those colors with my ink daubing tools, and you can kind of see I have 4 of them. So that's pretty easy. And those are just using little foam tips to kind of sponge on some color. And then I'm taking my paintbrush and adding a little bit of color with the paintbrush. You can kind of see I'm just adding it on there and then kind of spreading it out with the ink dauber. And then I'm also adding splatters with my paintbrush. So just a few little splatters in each color. And what I'm trying to do is add dimension and layers by adding the color on top of itself over and over and over in different ways. It kind of gives you different looks, and it gives that color depth. So that's the goal. So I'm going to let it dry a little bit, and then I didn't let it dry yet. Hold on. So I'm going to add white acrylic paint. So I just took some white acrylic paint from my stash. I'm watering it down with water, and I'm going to splatter that on while those mediums are still a little bit wet. And what that's going to do is that white is going to lift some of that color, and it's going to add just a whole nother little texture or little layer of color that gives some more dimension to the layout. So I will wipe off the excess paint and you can kind of see it sort of blends in there a little bit, but you can still tell that there's another layer. And then I'm going to take this stencil. This is a Vicki Boutin stencil. It's little hexagons, kind of messy looking hexagons. And I'm taking the same ink daubing tool with the same color. And you're going to be able to see by adding another layer of the color, it gets a little bit darker each time. And that helps me, just with the same exact colors, I'm getting a whole nother look. So by adding it layer after layer, you get lots of visual interest there. And it's not super pronounced, like when you're doing this with the stencil, when you're doing tone on tone, it's not super pronounced because I'm using the same color. So it's not meant to like be crazy and stand out, but it does help give some depth to each section of color. All right, I'm going to add on some more dandelion. I'm loving, at this point, I'm loving how that looks. And I'm using a baby wipe to clean my stencil in between each color. So these colors are not colors that would blend well, like purple and orange don't really blend with anything. Well, I mean, you can blend orange with yellow or orange with pink or, those kinds of things, but you can't blend purple and orange, and you can't blend green and orange if you want it to be pretty. So you definitely want to clean your stencil in between adding on those colors to make sure you're not kind of going to get like a muddy mess. So then I let all of those layers dry a little bit, and I am going to add on now some stamping. So you can kind of see like it's super bright. The colors are super vivid. And as I start adding some more layers of stamps and some more neutrals to the top of it, you're going to see it kind of calms down some of those colors a little bit. So not that that's what I'm necessarily going for, but it does happen as I'm adding some stamps. So that first stamp is just kind of like it's almost like a little messy hatch mark, and like a texture stamp. And I'm going to add that. And I'm using a couple of different types of ink. So I'm using a StazOn black ink. So I know that if I go back and add more shimmers or I add more wet mediums, it's not going to lift that black color. It's going to stay exactly where it is, because I am going to be adding some splatters of some more shimmers as I go. So I wanted to make sure that some of those colors that I didn't want to move around, that they stay steady. So now what I'm doing, I am using, this is a stamp set from Stampers Anonymous. It's a Tim Holtz collection called The Obscure, and it has that big spider web is super cute, and it has like little numbers in it. It's kind of like it almost looks like a compass mixed with a spider web. Something about it, I don't know, I love how that looks. So I'm adding that with a Distress Oxide, so that will lift color as I go if I want it to, because it's a water-soluble ink. And then I'm adding a few more little script stamps with the StazOn again, because I don't want the script to move around. I want it to just be set how I stamp it on the background. So depending on what you're using or what type of stamp ink you're using, you kind of can do different things with it. So I'm using a combination of ink that stays put and then also ink that I could kind of alter if I wanted to. Okay, and then I pulled out some stamps from Close to My Heart. So I'm using two different stamp sets. They're old. I've had them forever. Happy Haunting is one of them, and then the other one is Spellbound. So those are both from Close to My Heart, and I use different little pieces from each. So like those little black bats I wanted to use because the purple patterned paper from the Shimmerz Color Kitz have cute little black bats on it. So I really liked how that looked. And then I added some more webbing, like different shapes of spider webs. And then I'm adding some words. That big boo I added in a gray ink. And then, because that gives it kind of a different look, a different dimension. And then I added some little phrases that say like happy haunting and spooky. So a few little different layers there. And you can kind of tell now that I have added on some layers of stamps, those colors kind of calm down because the black and the gray added some neutrals on top and it made it not so vibrant. So That's kind of a fun little thing that happens when you start adding layered stamps. And then I also took from the bonus bundle, I took the I Love You Onyxly. It's kind of hard to say. Onyx, I Love You Onyxly. That is a black, it's a black Shimmerz, I think. No, it's an Inklings. Sorry, it's an Inklings. So that is a medium that comes dry, and you add your own water to it to activate it, and it dries very shimmery and shiny, and I love how that looks. So I added just some splatters of that around, and I do end up loving how that looks on the final layout once it dries. Okay, so here I took another piece of patterned paper from the October kits, and those have, it's just black spider webs with some black spiders. So I kind of tore off a layer to add behind, just at the top and bottom, and then I'm going to add a little bit more of this orange with the black polka dots. I love how that looks. And these layers are intended to look messy. You can tell they're not straight. They're not like a specific size. I didn't measure anything. I just kind of ripped, tore just a little strip to add behind there. And I'm going to add it behind all of that. Okay, and so then I sat that off and dried off. A few of those splatters were still a little bit wet because I added them on pretty thickly, and so it took a while for them to dry. So I used a paper towel to kind of blot that up, and then I'm ready to add, here we go, I'm ready to add my photos to it. So I added another layer of craft foam. So at this point right now, there's 2 layers of craft foam because there was one between the photos and the pattern paper, and now one behind all of the pattern papers. But this craft foam it's not super thick, so the layout itself is not going to be too bad. Everything goes in a page protector for me, so even if it has layers of craft foam, it still works. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add that on. And you can see there I did use wet glue. I use Scotch tacky glue in my fine liner bottle, and that helps make sure everything adheres to the wet mediums that I've added to the background. And then I also used a tape runner, and that just kind of holds it in place for right now while I'm working with it. But really the wet glue, I always use the wet glue to make sure it sticks permanently. Okay, so then I went through the little ephemera set that comes in the October Color Kits and pulled out a whole bunch of cute, super cute little things. So some pumpkins, there was a little witch hat that I added to one of the pumpkins, this word boo that I'm adding a little bit of craft foam to the back of. I did trim off, there were white edges or white borders on all of the little pieces of ephemera, so each one of those I trimmed, kind of fussy cut around and trimmed the white off of. And then I do distress the edges of the little pumpkins before I add them on. And I have that super cute little green eyeball I'm going to add over there on the left side. I love how that looks. And then I have a spider web that I add on the right side. And I kind of tuck a few of these things, I'm kind of tucking into the different layers of patterned paper. So you kind of get the embellishments at different levels. And then that little bat is so cute with his little 2 bright white eyes. And that little bat's gonna be moved around several times. So what I did here is I took on my Cricut, I just cut it's actually a square of hexagons. So it kind of looks like the same pattern as the stencil that I used. So I'm repeating patterns, which is always pleasing to the eye. So I'm taking those hexagons, kind of the same pattern, and I cut it on just black cardstock. And I am tearing off little pieces, and then I'm layering those little pieces behind those different layers of patterned paper. And I definitely, when I'm tearing off the pieces because I want it to look sort of weathered and worn a little bit. So I don't have any perfect pieces that I tore off. They're all kind of obscure a little bit. And I'm just tucking those in and around the layout. And you can see definitely adding that black as I go, it definitely makes a big impact. So I'm just adding small little pieces here and there, but it definitely helps kind of tie everything together, I think. And everything is centered around the photos. So I'm bringing all of the attention that I'm bringing, or all of the details that I'm adding are centered around those photos, because I want to bring your attention to the photos, which are the important part of the layout. And here I go moving that little bat again. I move it several times. It took me a little while to figure out where I wanted it to go. Okay, and then here I am adding some of the Shimmerz Flare that comes in the color kits. So they're called dots, and they're epoxy dots. So I'm going to be adding a couple of those to the layout, but I do get some tangled thread and add that before I glue those down. So I added a little bit of orange tangled thread up there in the top, because I knew that would contrast nicely with the purple that it's sitting on top of. And then I'm going to add that green flare. That's a little spider, kind of like a little navy blue spider. Super cute. And then the little bat's going to go back on there. Again, okay, so now I think he's in his final place. And then I'm going to tuck in a little bit more thread down at the bottom. So that's like kind of a deep purple thread that I'm adding on that orange section. And I added another little dots from the kit, and it says cute and creepy. And those do come on a little piece of foam, like craft foam, that you could use to glue them down. But I always take that off and add my own craft foam, because I don't know why, I just always do that. I think because I want them to be really steady, and so I make the craft foam a little bit bigger, kind of cut a circle of craft foam to go behind them. And there you saw I added some yellow tangled thread. I'm adding some green tangled thread. So I'm sticking with the main colors on the layout. So the purple, the yellow, the green, and the orange. I have little thread in each of those colors, and that just adds great texture. I love how that looks. And another little pop of color. And you can kind of see, I wasn't necessarily intentionally doing this, but my eye just kind of tends to do this, but you can kind of see that my ephemera is kind of trailing down the page. So I kind of do some at the top, sort of offset to the right, and then it kind of trails down to the left side and down the page. So it kind of flows all together. And then in the bonus bundles, there is a fabulous set of sequins, all different kinds of little sequins. There's little witches on brooms, and there's some little white ghosts, and all different color sequins, all of the colors that are in the color kit of sequins. So I add a whole bunch of those, and then I add pops of color in the coordinating colors around the layout, and then here is the final look. So I do have some close-ups of each of the little areas that I did, and you can kind of see all of those layers. I hope you enjoyed watching this process. If you have any questions, pop them down in the comments and I will answer them. And then, as always, remember, if you are going to place an order with Shimmerz Paints, if you put my name, Sarah Millerhouse, in the comment section of your order, you will get a free paint. So that's a super fun little added bonus, and I hope you guys have an awesome day. Bye.